So my gas tank is cleaned out. It looks really nice on the inside. That's my gas tank cleaning tool. I kind of got it wrapped up now, but I strapped the tank on there. I put the sharpest landscaping rock I can in there and turn it on. It turns about 4 RPM. It's essentially a giant rock tumbler. And that's what I kind of dumped out. The really fine dust is actually a good sign, because that's all the rust and dust and whatnot that came out of there. And it's really not dirty nasty, like brown, so that's good. I'm gonna try to show you this. Hopefully it shows up. Yeah, it actually does pretty decent in the camera, but obviously it's not perfectly clean, but it's pretty darn good. So the next step I'm gonna do, I'm gonna dump a gallon or two of lacquer thinner in there, and that'll help clean out just a lot of the fine dust and some of that other residue. Dump that out. I'm gonna let that dry. It's a nice sunny day. I could just set it out in the sun. It'll evaporate out. And then I'm gonna use this stuff. It's a phosphate coating stuff used to help stop and stabilize rust and da-da-da-da-da. I haven't used this kind of stuff before in gas tanks, or at least not this brand anyway, but this is similar to what some of these gas tank cleaning kits have in. So I've got a couple bottles of that. I'm just gonna dump in there, slosh it around, roll it around, and then dump it out, let it air out. And then of course I'm gonna clean out the outside of the tank too. I'm gonna sandblast it and then get all that shit out, blow all that dust out, and then I can get her back in once I get the pump and everything else, the sending unit back in there. There's the lacquer thinner that I just took out. I sloshed it around for about a minute or so. You know, obviously lacquer thinner is normally clear. That is kind of cloudy. You can see there was one rock that I didn't, must have been stuck in there a little bit, fell out. So it's about 2 inches deep there. You can kind of get an idea roughly how saturated that is with goo, or gook I should say. So that's what I was able to clean out just by flushing with lacquer thinner. And then once it's dry, I'll do the other steps I just talked about. So I got the gas tank blasted and painted. Not like crazy super clean blasted, but I got all the major rust off and all the light rust off too. So but all of, well, you can see I already got my filler neck grommet in. I put just a little grease around the edge of it so it'd slide in easier, and that helped a lot. The last few times I put them in, I've fought just because, you know, the metal was a little sticky or rough, doesn't want to slide in there nice. Made a huge difference. And I will show you the inside here. It does show up fairly well for what a guy can see in there. And that is, after it was all cleaned out and I did the that phosphate stuff you just saw a little bit ago, looks pretty good. I will do something just for the first tank or so. I'm gonna put a secondary fuel filter in there before the main filter. Just if there is any dust or whatever in there, hopefully that'll catch that. You know, maybe it'll save me 10,000 miles worth on the fuel filter. You know, it's a small thing. You know, I think it's worth the effort. So the next will be putting in the fuel pump and the fuel level sending unit. And pump goes there, sending unit goes here. This thing, I don't know how well a guy can even see it necessarily, but let me turn the light on here. That helps a little bit. So there's this weird, I don't know, little bathtub thing, I guess, for lack of a better word, that the pump itself sits in. Oops, as it rolls away. So this is kind of sits in that plastic thing. That plastic thing kind of floats in there. It's not welded down like a lot of them I've seen. There'll be a little metal pen in there essentially, and that's there. So as you're driving around, the gas is sloshing. At least it's kind of, gas gets into that area easy. It takes a little more effort for it to leave. That way, you've always got gas at your fuel pump. So, and it's weird because that kind of just sits in there, and then it has this hose coming out of it that's kind of connected, and that's the return line. But the return line is connected to our level sending unit. So this is the return line coming here, and then it hooks onto here. So it's a weird two-piece affair that at the factory, when they built this tank, they had to put all these pieces in there together just on this half of the tank before they welded the other half on. I don't know, it seems weird, but I guess if that's how they did it, that's how they did it. Obviously, I can't do that again. I'm not going to take the tank apart and try to re-weld the whole thing. That's downright stupid. So I've just got to do some creative grabbing with my fingers to make sure everything gets lined up right. And then this hose, actually I'll shove through this hole, so once I get the fuel pump in, you know, da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, so that's kind of the status on the fuel tank for now. When I get all that in there, I'll show you, and hopefully that'll be maybe done yet tonight. I have a brand new fuel pump from Bosch, and I have a brand new sanding unit that's a Spectra brand, so everything in the tank is going to be brand new. I'm not using those old, nasty, disgusting things I just had laying on the floor. Yes, this lock ring is old and nasty. For some reason, the new fuel pump didn't come with one. I've got a new one on the way, but it's in there. The level sending unit, there's two little tabs on the side, and I fought with that, and those tabs were just a little too wide, so I had to just tweak them a little bit, then it went in. But otherwise, that is all good to go. I'll get this put in the car, hopefully maybe this weekend. And I got to get new vapor line for that. I think it's 3/16 because quarter is too big. I wish I wouldn't have cut it now, because that might be tough to find, 3/16 fuel line, that style. Anyway, it's in there, looking beautiful right now, and off to the next step. Well, there it is. It's in, shiny and black. So, one thing I mentioned before, and here it is, I added an extra fuel filter after the pump, before it goes to the main filter. This hose on this end is exactly the right length, so after I run it for a little while, I can just disconnect it here and hook it up right to there, where it's supposed to be. Yes, it's a plastic filter. Yes, it's fuel injection, but Chrysler fuel injection, early stuff, didn't have like a ton of pressure yet. That and this is only temporary, so I mean, it won't even run the full tank. It'll just be whatever. Once I get it going, just running it around the yard until it's actually ready to hit the road, then I'll take that out. The other thing, speaking of filters, if I can, whoops, see this. So, factory filter. This hose was pretty short and makes a pretty tight loop. I made it the same length as the original, whoops, and it was, apparently this hose, my new hose is a lot stiffer, so it kinked. Made it a little longer. It didn't kink, but it was kind of a sharp bend, so it actually worked out perfect. So this right here is the original hose. I just kind of shoved it in the inside of the radius to hold this hose in place until it kind of forms, gets a good form to it, and this eventually will either fall out or I'll take it out, when I do that other filter, just to give it a chance to not have a restriction in there. So other than that, the fuel tank is in. I'll do a few other things before I put gas in it and turn the key on, make sure the pump runs right, but I think for the most part, the fuel system is ready to rock and or roll. What I did, obviously the gas tank is back in. I had to take that out. That's a whole other story, maybe for some other day. But before I hooked everything up on this end, I just put a piece of fuel line in here just into the can, and then I hot wired the fuel pump, because turning the key on, it'll run for like a couple seconds, and then if in that and shut off, well, that's a lot of fuel line to refill. Anyway, so before I hooked it up, I wanted to, flush that line, because I blew all the garbage out of it, but, it's been sitting for a long time. Who knows what's sitting in it, because the gas that was in it was just disgusting. So I figured I was going to see some really nasty stuff come out of there. And that looks really nice. There's a couple little floaters in there. So probably what I'll do, I might run it a couple more times, let it sit overnight. That way if there's any gook in the line, it'll kind of soften, and I'll blow it out again. But on this particular car, probably all front-wheel drive Mopars that are fuel injected, the positive side of the coil is also the same circuit as the fuel pump. So when you're cranking it or when it's running, there's power here, which then goes to the fuel pump, turns that on. So I just jumped a wire across, got it to go, and blew a little gas out. And I put exactly 2 gallons in. So I figure there's no other opportunity where I'm going to be able to know exactly what. Obviously, the other day, empty was empty, 100%. That right there, you can see it. The needle is right on the very, very bottom edge of the amber. That is 2 gallons in the tank, minus whatever little dribbles I shot out already. So now I know. I will make sure I document that in my head, maybe take a picture of it. That way, as I'm driving down the road and I forget to put gas in, or I'm a long ways between gas stations, I know that is 2 gallons. And now that just turned on too. That takes a while for the fuel light to turn on, but that tells me also that I'm out of gas, or just about out of gas. So that 2 gallons, I don't know how low it can suck the tank, but you know, that's probably got me 25 miles left by the time it actually starts not running right. So here is the gas that's come out the last few times I've run the pump, just to run it and then letting it sit, kind of dissolving all the gook that was in the line. And you can kind of see, yeah, it shows up on camera, the sediment in the corner. So I'm gonna keep doing this every once in a while, just run the pump a little bit, pushing gas through the line, and just to kind of dissolve out some of that old gook and varnish that's in the line itself. And I think I'm going to do the same thing I kind of did in the back. I'm going to put an extra fuel filter in between there and the throttle body. You know, up in this direction somewhere, because right now the hose is just going into this can. Just so I can catch all that crap, and once I do the initial break in, then I'll hook the fuel line up, you know, the way it's supposed to, without it in there. And then hopefully I'll get all that junk out before it becomes a problem in the throttle body, because getting a kit for that thing was a challenge to find that. 6 gallons, just under the halfway mark, which makes sense because it's a 14-gallon tank. Right there, that is exactly 8 gallons in the tank. 10 gallons now, just a smidge under the 3/4 mark. There is 12 gallons, a little under the full mark. 14 gallons in there right now. That's very full. There's probably room for more. There's always, if it'll call it a 14-gallon tank, you can probably put like 15, 16 in. But that's good enough for now. So if you're keeping track at home, boys and girls, now you have a record of what a K-Car fuel tank looks like from 0 to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14.